Chapter 8:13. Looking at the pitch-black surroundings, Nangong Firen clenched his fists tightly as he hugged Nangong Lin tightly and gave an order, "Follow up." Now, they could only follow the world group. In this pitch-black abyss, they who didn't know where they were in the King Ling's tomb could only follow the world group to find a chance to exit. Moreover, their mission target was in the middle layer of the King Ling's tomb. The world group wanted to make use of them, so why didn't they make use of them instead? The world group's youngsters followed behind Yi Qing Luo in an orderly manner. Zhao Bo turned back from time to time to take a look at the Death God mercenary group who were still at the original spot with a puzzled expression. "Vice Group Leader, are we really going to leave them here? If they had the Death God mercenary group's help, it should be much safer for them to walk around the King Ling's tomb." Vice Group Leader had signed a deal with the Death God mercenary group, wasn't it to make use of them? Yi Qing Luo shot a glance at him with a smile which didn't look like a smile. "They will follow up." Zhao Bo didn't believe it. A gold-ranked mercenary group on the honor board had been humiliated to such a state by a mere bronze-ranked mercenary group. As long as the Death God mercenary group had some backbone, they wouldn't possibly continue to trade with them. However, this thought had just flashed past Zhao Bo's mind when he heard a series of orderly footsteps. Turning back, he indeed saw Nangong Firen leading 30 over mercenaries, following them in quick steps. Zhao Bo was stunned as he looked at Nangong Firen in puzzlement. "He has no other choice but to choose us." After a few words of interaction, Yi Qing Luo could roughly understand Nangong Firen and the other's character. Nangong Firen was someone who cared about the big picture and wouldn't be tied down just because of a small matter. Moreover, the poison in Yi Fengru's body was something that only she could cure. Towards the Death God mercenary group following them, the world group's mercenaries didn't open their mouths to tease or ridicule them. They only followed Yi Qing Luo solemnly. The group of them remained silent as they followed closely behind. The deeper they went, the colder they felt. Under the luminous pearl's glow, the air seemed to be lingering with a thin layer of fog. It was the kind of gloomy fog. It was grayish and extremely terrifying. Everyone stepped on the gravel and the sound was especially ear-piercing under the silent and strange atmosphere. Every sound was like something was ruthlessly pounding on their hearts. He felt an inexplicable palpitation and nervousness. The expressions of the mercenaries of the Azura team became more and more solemn. Their footsteps also gradually became extremely heavy. Nangong Firen also felt the atmosphere as she looked at the expressionless and silent youths of the world group. She clenched her teeth and berated them from the Mercenary Guild badge. "Keep your spirits up. You are the elite mercenaries of the Gold Mercenary Group. Don't tell me they can't compare to those bronze plate mercenaries who haven't even grown their hair yet." The mercenaries of the Killing God Guild were scolded badly. Under the glory of the Gold Mercenary Group, they were used to being arrogant and competitive. Naturally, they were not willing to admit that they were inferior to these bronze plate brats. However, in the strange and dangerous tomb of the Ling King, there was an unknown danger ahead. They had no idea what would happen in the next second. How could he not be afraid? Looking at the fearless young faces of the world mercenaries, he could only attribute their fearlessness to the fact that they didn't know what kind of dangerous place the Ling King's tomb was. Chapter 8:14. The group of them had walked for an unknown period of time, and even for these cultivators who had been practicing martial arts for many years, they could feel the fatigue in their legs. The seemingly bottomless tunnel finally showed some changes. The further they walked, the narrower the tunnel became. From the original 6 to 7 people walking side by side, they gradually shifted backwards and finally it became Yi Qing Luo who was walking at the front, forming a straight line. Yi Qing Luo's heart, which was hanging in the air, also sunk slightly. Earlier, based on the direction of the green vine's growth, Yi Qing Luo had determined the direction which led to the bottom of King Ling's tomb. After walking for such a long time, she started to doubt her own judgment. Finally she saw the change in the shape of the road, which proved that her determination of the direction was not wrong. This kind of narrow road, after walking for about an incense's time, there was a stone wall in front and there was no other path. Yi Qing Luo stood in front of the stone wall and was sizing it up when a young lady's barbaric voice was heard from afar. "Hey! Do you know how to lead the way or not? This is basically a dead end." Along the way, Nangong Lin could no longer hold back the anger which had accumulated in her heart. Now on seeing Yi Qing Luo leading a dead end, the disgust in her heart gushed out. A small mercenary group is just a small mercenary group, totally ignorant. You chose this path so casually that I really thought you were sure that this was the exit. You dare to randomly choose a path in the tomb. It's still alright if you meet a dead end, but if you meet with other mechanisms or arrays and cause us to get injured, you will be a sinner. All these knowledge were what Nangong Firen was worried that Nangong Lin would be afraid along the way, so as they walked, she softly taught her some common knowledge on going out for experience learning. Nangong Lin was rather smart, and after she memorized all these, it was just the right time to give Yi Qing Luo a tight slap on her face. Yi Qing Luo totally ignored Nangong Lin's hooting as her gaze was still on the stone wall, as her half-squinted eyes revealed some seriousness. Seeing Yi Qing Luo keeping silent, Nangong Lin became even more complacent as her voice rose by a few notches. "The world group's trash. If you want to leave the tomb alive, you'd better follow my brother obediently. Just based on the few of you empty shells, I'm afraid you won't be able to leave even after another 500 years. Lin, Nangong Firen frowned and pulled her sister into her arms. Although she sounded like she was blaming Nangong Lin, she didn't explain what Nangong Lin had just said. In other words, Nangong Firen agreed with Nangong Lin. Yi Qing Luo originally didn't want to bother about Nangong Lin. However, the words that Nangong Lin said had angered her. His protective heart was immediately filled with anger. She slowly turned around, her gaze as cold as a torch. There were dozens of people between the two of them. But unfortunately, when Yi Qing Luo's gaze fell onto Nangong Lin felt a chill running down her spine as her entire body started to tremble. Following that, they heard Yi Qing Luo's cold and indifferent voice rang in the spacious tomb. "If you're really that powerful, just leave. There's no need to follow us." "You!" Nangong Lin flew into a rage out of humiliation as she struggled free from Nangong Firen's arm and pointed at Yi Qing Luo as she berated, "If it wasn't for the fact that you, this vicious and evil woman, had poisoned Brother Ru, would we even care about following you?" "Oh." Yi Qing Luo's brows rose as the smile in her eyes turned colder. "Then ask your brother, if my second brother wasn't poisoned, would he choose to form an alliance?" Yi Qing Luo intentionally used the word, form an alliance. She was giving Nangong Firen a way out. Lin, enough. Nangong Firen naturally wouldn't answer this question as he directly grabbed Nangong Lin's arm and stared at her, indicating for her to shut up. Right from the start, it was Yi Qing Luo who was in charge of everything. This kind of feeling made them feel very uncomfortable. According to the information on the tomb of the Lai Ling King, the tomb of the Lai Ling King is guarded by a formation. Yi Qing Luo lightly lifted her eyelids. If Azura God Group's vice group leader hadn't investigated the mission's information clearly before setting off for the mission, why not take this opportunity to read through the information on Ling Ling King's tomb, in case you make a fool out of yourself? Zi Qianqian's face immediately turned red. And Yi Qing Luo's words made the hearts of the other mercenaries jump abruptly. These youths had investigated the tomb of the Ling King beforehand. In other words, they knew exactly how dangerous the tomb was. They didn't even have the courage of a few young mercenaries. These gold medal mercenaries' pride had suffered a huge blow. Unknowingly, they all puffed out their chests, as no one was willing to admit that they couldn't be compared to a bronze medal mercenary. Yi Qing Luo's eyes suddenly flashed as she raised her hand and touched the totem on the stone wall. Chapter 8:16. She had finally snatched back the leading rights. Nangong Firen's eyes were masked with disdain. Bronze plates were bronze plates, no matter how shocking their performance was, it couldn't change the fact that they lacked experience. So what if they had checked the information of King Ling's tomb? Wouldn't they still commit the lowest level mistake? Nangong Firen gave a light harumph as he took a big stride forward and raised his hand to stop her. But before Nangong Firen's hand stretched out, Yiqing Luo's finger had already pressed onto the head of King Ling's totem. Her slender jade-like fingers, under the contrast of blood, looked extremely fair. A loud boom 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 was heard as that stone wall shook slightly. Everyone felt that the entire tunnel was shaking. Nangong Firen's hand also retracted back because of the shaking, as he hugged Nangong Lin tightly. Nangong Lin had taken a trip to the gates of hell because of the earthquake outside the tomb. Now that she felt the ground beneath her feet shaking, she couldn't help but let out a wah-wah scream. The entire tunnel was long and serene. Nangong Lin's screams reverberated. While everyone was in a fluster, their heads were in extreme pain from the shaking. "Shut up!" Yiqing Luo's voice was cold and dignified. Two casual words caused Nangong Lin's voice to stop abruptly. By the time Nangong Lin realized that she was so obedient, her face flushed red as she gritted her teeth and was about to scold Yiqing Luo. But all the words were stuck at the side of her mouth. That stone wall in front of them started to move towards the right at an extremely slow speed. Like an old machine which hadn't been moved for a long time, it gave off an ear-piercing friction sound. That swaying feeling earlier was caused by the stone wall's movement. Realizing this, everyone's uneasy hearts finally calmed down. After the stone wall opened up, an extremely smelly moldy smell came gushing out, together with a thick stench. The two smells blended together in an extremely strange manner. This smell, as compared to the World Group's mercenaries when they first entered the tomb, was much thicker by 1,000 times. Azura Group's mercenaries immediately held onto the stone wall which was filled with vines as they bent down and vomited. On the contrary, the World Group's mercenaries followed behind Yiqing Luo without a change in expression, as one after another, they walked into the stone wall which was opened up. It was as if he could not smell the disgusting and unbearable stench at all. Nangong Firen's face was ashen, and he looked as though he was about to vomit. He glared at the young mercenaries with his cold and sinister eyes. Swish! A shiny object was thrown in a beautiful arc in the air toward Nangong Firen. Nangong Firen stretched out his arm and caught the item. Opening his palm, he saw a palm-sized white jade bottle lying on his palm. It was still emitting a refreshing medicinal fragrance, which diluted the unpleasant fishy smell in his nose. Is this the quality of a gold-ranked mercenary group? Before doing the mission, you don't know how to investigate the specific background and information of the mission. You also don't know how to prepare the things you need to prepare according to the mission location. Yiqing Luo's lips twitched in ridicule as her eyes couldn't conceal the contempt. Gold-ranked mercenary group. Ranked third on the honor list, it's really hard for me not to doubt the authenticity of your mercenary group. What do you know? Nangong Lin's face flushed red as she roared furiously. On what basis do you doubt the Azura group? If you have the ability, then compete with my brother. Use your ability to speak. Nangong Lin's words had just finished roaring when Nangong Firen tugged her arm, shaking her head at her. Withstanding the huge psychological pressure, they braced themselves and followed the leader's footsteps forward. These mercenaries had never imagined that they would be at the bottom of the Qianling King's tomb. They all thought that, at most, they would be able to complete the outer perimeter quests of the Tomb King's tomb, and then complete the quests Yi Fingru gave them. It wasn't a simple mission, but if they could complete an ordinary mission from the tomb, it would be enough for them to show off in the mercenary world. They could also ride on the wave of popularity. But now, all the plans had deviated from the original design. The deeper they went into the tomb, the more dangerous it was for them. Who was not afraid of death? Especially for elite gold medal mercenaries like them. They hadn't enjoyed enough glory, so how could they be willing to die? With apprehensions and unwillingness in their hearts, the more they walked, the more fearful they became, unlike the world group's young mercenaries who had no distracting thoughts in their hearts. With such a comparison, it was no wonder that Yi Qing Luo would question the authenticity of their gold-ranked mercenary group. Yi Qing Luo casually threw it towards the direction where those worms were surging. With a bang, the lamp was fried, and the flame instantly spread over those worms. The flames surged, elongating everyone's shadows. However, when the fire burned, the crowd did not feel the slightest bit of warmth. Instead, they felt that it was getting colder and colder. Thick smoke billowed and filled the long tunnel. Everyone's eyes were a little dry from the smoke. "Let's go." Yi Qing Luo looked at those worms which were engulfed by the flames, as her tightly knitted brows had yet to ease up. She turned around and left, and the others naturally followed suit. Long Yunzhan walked beside Yi Qing Luo, and when he saw Yi Qing Luo's frowning expression, he bent down slightly as he inquired softly, "What's the matter?" Yi Qing Luo went silent for a moment, as she transmitted her voice through the mercenary group badge. "Somehow I feel that, after we entered the tomb today, everything that happened is very strange. Somehow I feel something is not right." After a while, she said bitterly, "What else?" "Also." Old man Tsang's voice paused and he sighed. "In your heart, don't you already have an answer?" Yi Qing Luo's face turned slightly pale as she lowered her eyelids. Indeed, she already had an answer in her heart. He just didn't want to admit this answer. But hearing old man Tsang's tone, it also meant that her thoughts were not wrong. There was another possibility, that something had happened to the mother profound jade heart which had formed this son profound jade heart. This thought flashed past her mind, but was directly rejected by Yi Qing Luo. Who was Dmo Xian? The overlord who was invincible in this world. How could something possibly happen? Yi Qing Luo's slender fingers slightly curled up. While her thoughts were in a trance, there was a small conflict over at the Azura group's side. Nangong Lin was making a fuss about wanting to go home. Under the push, Yi Qing Luo's body was pushed forward a few steps. Chapter 822. Everyone's hair stood on end as their calves trembled and their entire bodies trembled. The raging wind swept up the shattered stones on the ground as it flew in all directions. Their ears were filled with an ear-piercing howl of the wind, mixed with the shattered stones rolling onto the ground as the explosion sounds were heard. A gust of chilly air speedily spread in the tunnel. Bam, bam bam bam, a series of collisions were heard and the 5 black coffin lids which were placed quietly on the 5 small paths all bounced open at the same time. 5 black coffin lids crossed each other in mid-air and after drawing a few cold arcs, it directly leaned against the side of the coffins. Following that, 5 corpse puppets bounced out from the 5 open coffins. 5 corpse puppets stood stiffly at the front of the coffins, as though they were wooden puppets which were hung in mid-air, without any signs of life. They were dressed in black loose robes and their entire heads were shrouded in the black robes so their faces couldn't be seen. Corpse puppets. Corpse puppets. 5 high-leveled corpse puppets. Ghost. Ghost. We're dead meat. 5 high-leveled corpse puppets have been awakened. The Death God mercenary group's mercenaries all shrunk backwards as no one was willing to stand at the forefront. And when they saw Yi Qing Luo standing on that small path, they couldn't help but burst out curses. The world group. Are you trying to get us killed? You obviously know the terror of the 5 corpses and still want to alarm them. These mercenaries, because Yi Qing Luo had struck their pride several times, putting on a high and mighty look, they had long been dissatisfied with Yi Qing Luo. Now that they saw Yi Qing Luo alarm the 5 high-leveled corpse puppets, their belly full of terror and terror exploded at this instance. The world group's vice group leader, "What's the matter with you? Once the 5 corpses are alarmed, they will kill all the intruders before they stop. Do you want us to die with you? One person opened his mouth and one after another people started to open their mouths. But when Yiqing Luo turned her eyes sideways and stared coldly at them, everyone's voices seemed to be stuck in their throats, not able to say a single word. Her ravishing look seemed to be covered with a layer of frost. Her long, narrow, and bewitching eyes shot out a piercingly cold light. It was as if being swept by her gaze would make one feel as if they were in an ice house. Especially with the 5 corpse puppets in the background. This killing gaze swept over and successfully silenced the clamoring mercenaries. Yiqing Luo stood on that small path, not moving at all. After making those people shut up, she turned around and stared indifferently at the 5 corpse puppets standing upright in the coffins. Her tone was calm and no one could tell what she was feeling. The deal between the Killing God group and me is to assist the World group to complete the Mercenary Association's mission. After the members of the Azura group heard this, they were so nervous that they had difficulty breathing. His throat felt like it was being choked by something, and it was extremely uncomfortable. Complete the Mercenary Union's mission. Bring back the coffin of the Guardian Zombie King. How could this be possible? Don't joke around. Nangong Lin shivered in Nangong Firen's arms. Corpse puppets. Those are corpse puppets. Don't tell me you want to defeat these corpse puppets? Towards the terror of the corpse puppets, she more or less understood from the mutterings of the Azura group's mercenaries. It was undoubtedly like striking a rock with an egg. No matter if we want to or not, we have no way out now. Yiqing Luo's expression was calm as she calmly opened her mouth. The corpse puppets were alarmed, which indicated that the corpse puppet array had been activated. If there was still a trace of living aura in the tomb, these corpse puppets would not return to their coffins to sleep again. Chapter 823. I want to go home. Brother, I want to go home. She's a lunatic. Nangong Lin's chest was in pain as she bit her lower lip tightly. She was so scared that her tears kept flowing out. Nangong Firen frowned as she exchanged glances with the other vice group leaders. She could see the helplessness in each other's eyes. Just as what Yiqing Luo said. No matter whether they wanted to defeat these 5 corpse puppets, they had no other way out. Once the corpse puppets were alarmed, none of them would be able to escape. Only by giving it their all would they have a chance to survive. If it wasn't for her overestimating herself, we wouldn't have ended up in such a state. Zi Qianqian's beautiful face surfaced a trace of sullen anger. She really thinks that she's so powerful, putting on a look of a senior to lecture us. In the end, it's because they don't have the ability to make sufficient preparations before taking on the mission. Those who have the ability, no matter where they go, will not be a problem. Qianqian. Nangong Firen shook her head at Zi Qianqian. Am I wrong? Zi Qianqian gave a cold harumph. If she really has the ability, she wouldn't have used her second brother's life to threaten us. Nangong Firen's brows were tightly knitted into a bundle. Zi Qianqian's words weren't without reason. But Nangong Firen still felt that the World Group's cautious attitude was indeed what their Azura group lacked. Looking at Zi Qianqian's fairy-like face, which was obviously filled with disgust and arrogance, Nangong Firen could still see the jealousy towards Yiqing Luo in the depths of her eyes. Jealousy, yes. How could she not be jealous? All along, Zi Qianqian was hailed as the genius among the geniuses. She had an enviable profound jade heart and her cultivation speed was extraordinary. No matter if it was beauty, ability, or intellect. Zi Qianqian was forever high up and was hailed as Fairy Qianqian. Yiqing Luo's appearance was enough to make Zi Qianqian feel a sense of crisis. But now, Nangong Firen had no intention to delve into this issue with Zi Qianqian at this juncture. She only replied calmly, "Let's talk about this after we leave the tomb." Yiqing Luo stood stiffly on the spot as she squinted her eyes at the 5 corpse puppets. Her mind was searching for ways to deal with the corpse puppets. She could not move. The 5 corpse formation had already been activated. Now, as long as she took a slight step forward, the 5 corpse puppets would definitely jump up at the same time. Once they left the coffins, this fierce battle would begin. "Little girl," an old voice sounded extremely clear and spacious in this silent tunnel. Among the world group, an old man dressed in a white brocade robe and dressed like a nouveau riche slowly climbed down from the back of a mercenary from the world group. As if he had just woken up, he stroked his messy white hair and yawned. "Not bad, little girl." Chapter 8:24. Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased slightly as her charming eyes were like frost as she cried out sharply, "Shut up. Now is not the time to quarrel, gather your spirits and get into formation to defend." The world group's mercenaries retracted the thoughts in their eyes as they speedily got into formation, listening to Yiqing Luo's instructions. Nangong Firen grabbed Nangong Lin's arm as he pushed her into Yifeng Ru's arms and immediately gave a stern command: "God-slaying mercenary group, fully cooperate with the world mercenary group." That command was given, and although those mercenaries were dissatisfied, but they didn't show it out. As a mercenary, the most important condition was to obey all instructions. The 2 groups of people were already in position to prepare for battle. Yiqing Luo half-narrowed her eyes as she glanced sideways at God Thief, who was standing by the side with a satisfied expression. "Come over here." God Thief was still stretching his waist when he heard Yiqing Luo's words, and in a blink of an eye, he had already appeared in front of her. Towards this kind of gloomy place, God Thief was already used to it. Not to mention that he had been imprisoned in the underground prison for 10 years, living in darkness, gloomy days. Even if he hadn't gone to Death God Castle, before he was imprisoned, he had been to places like tombs quite a number of times. The current God Thief walked towards Yiqing Luo with a calm expression. Standing by the side of the 5 small paths, God Thief dug his ears. "Young lady, you need my help so soon. What weaknesses does the corpse puppet have?" Yiqing Luo rolled her eyes at him. She wasn't in the mood to joke around with him. God Thief scratched the back of his head as his face was still sloppy with an indifferent expression. But when he opened his mouth, he was extremely serious. These 5 corpse puppets were created by the combined efforts of the 4 sect masters 1,000 years ago. During the process of creation, they absorbed the heaven and earth's yin qi and the graveyard's grievance to form them, so they belonged to the high-grade corpse puppets. Yiqing Luo was very clear about this point as she nodded her head and didn't say a word. After 1,000 years, these corpse puppets are only left with a set of skeletons. If they want to regain their human form, they will need to absorb living creatures, and after they merge with the living creatures, they will be able to take on the appearance of the merged living creatures. Because of this, the minute these corpse puppets moved, they would try their best to snatch the living creatures to merge with them. The corpse puppets have weaknesses, but the high-grade corpse puppets refined by the 4 great sect masters have no weaknesses. Holy Pirate stroked his white beard and gently sighed. He shook his head and said, "Normal corpse puppets, if they do not absorb yin energy or spirits, cannot use the body of a corpse puppet to continue living. To deal with normal corpse puppets, we just need to stop them from absorbing yin energy or spirits." But these 5 high-level corpse puppets have already guarded the tomb of the Ling King for 1,000 years. In addition to the endless stream of profound practitioners, grave robbers, and the other profound practitioners who have been sending over the past 1,000 years, they have long since nourished them to the point where, even after another 1,000 years, they will still be able to continue living. Holy Pirate's voice was not loud, but it traveled clearly into everyone's ears in the silent grave. Nangong Firen's expression darkened. Zi Qianqian and Wei Beilai had already transmitted their voices through the mercenary group's badges, thinking about retreating quickly. However, this thought had just left his mouth. Yifeng Ru, who had been holding Nangong Lin's waist, suddenly turned pale. His body twitched, and he collapsed. His back was against the rock wall behind him, as his 5 fingers clasped in the direction of his heart. That intense pain which started to expand after his heart was pricked by needles attacked him once again. 2 hours had passed. The poison in Yifengru's body acted up again in an instant. Ru! Zi Qianqian's beautiful brows creased tightly, as she half squatted down to support Yifengru. A sliver of hatred flashed past her eyes. They had no choice but to retreat. Chapter 825. Yiqing Luo shot a cold glance and her fingertips moved as she fished out a medicinal pill. I can't move now, come over to take the medicine. The current Yiqing Luo was equivalent to a mechanism. The minute it was activated, those 5 advanced-leveled corpse puppets would pounce towards them without any hesitation. Zi Qianqian was about to head over, but Yifengru held her hand tightly as his expression was filled with pain as he couldn't help but moan in pain. I'll go. Nangong Lin looked at Yifengru with heartache as she anxiously rushed over. Dashing in front of Yiqing Luo, Nangong Lin grabbed her wrist as she barbarically pulled the medicinal pill out from her hand. Following that, she pushed Yiqing Luo harshly as she turned around and ran towards Yifengru. Your mother. Nangong Lin, are you King sick? Yiqing Luo's expression changed drastically as an unconcealable rage surged in her chest. Damn it. Don't be afraid of a godlike opponent, only afraid of a pig-like teammate. This Nangong Lin was simply the representative of God among the pig-like teammates. Yiqing Luo had just finished howling when the entire tomb suddenly gave off a loud sound as the ground started to shake continuously. Immediately following that, those 5 upright corpse puppets gave off a mournful howl. The sound traveled extremely far as wave after wave, irritating one's eardrums. Large pieces of rubble from the rock wall continued to fall. Some of them crashed onto the mercenaries' heads, causing a wound as their heads were filled with blood. Due to the fact that they had seen the corpse worms earlier, these mercenaries immediately took out the medicinal powder to stop the bleeding as they carelessly applied it onto their wounds. A thin layer of green mist, visible to the naked eye, gradually spread out in the tomb. The 2 groups of mercenary groups stared blankly at the front, at those 5 corpse puppets which had their hands stretched out facing the top of the tomb. That thin green weapon was being sucked into their bodies at an extremely fast speed. The world group, quickly retreat. Yiqing Luo shouted out sharply as she grabbed onto the lazy god thief as she speedily moved backwards. The world group's mercenaries subconsciously obeyed her command as they followed Yiqing Luo to retreat. At the same time, those 5 corpse puppets leapt upwards as they speedily attacked towards their direction. Help! There were a few screams. Before the Death God mercenary group could react, the few elite mercenaries standing at the front had already been captured by the corpse puppets. The luminous pearl shone brightly. Everyone could clearly see that the mercenary's hand was a piece of white bone. No one would be able to remain calm when they saw a person being pinned down by a few bones. In particular, after White Bones tightened its grip on the mercenaries, it didn't even take 10 breaths for the green mist to envelop the captive mercenaries. All that was left of the captive mercenaries were one by one. It was directly absorbed by these corpse puppets. In just a few breaths, the Death God mercenary group had lost 8 mercenaries who had fallen from the outside and were injured. Go! Nangong Firen's expression changed drastically as he silently scolded Yiqing Luo for not informing them first as he immediately asked his group members to leave with Yiqing Luo. However, he did not dare to show his anger on the surface. After all, it was Nangong Lin who caused the 5 high-level corpse puppets to react. Nangong Firen regretted bringing her willful younger sister with her today. Noticing her own brother's gaze, as well as the Death God mercenary group's reproachful gazes towards her, Nangong Lin pouted her lips aggrievedly as she sobbed, I didn't do it on purpose. She only hated Yiqing Luo and casually gave her a push. Who knew? Who knew that it would cause such an outcome? Soon after, a few silver threads pierced into the rock wall one by one. The youngsters in the mercenary group didn't say a word as they followed behind Yiqing Luo speedily past the flames. The world group. You guys. Wei Beilai immediately panicked. He quickly walked forward, wanting to snatch a silver wire. But before he could step forward, he was pushed aside by the world group's youngsters. In a blink of an eye, 90 over mercenaries from the world group had already arrived at the other end of the flames. The 5 corpse puppets had already caught up. Sharp and ear-piercing corpse howls resounded. Nangong Firen threw Nangong Lin to Yi Fingru and pushed them toward the silver threads. Then, he drew his long sword and leaped into the midst of the corpse puppets to attract their attention. Brother! Nangong Lin's face turned pale as she cried out in fear. Before she could struggle to chase after Nangong Firen, her body suddenly felt light as Yi Fingru brought her along and climbed onto one of the silver threads. Zi Qianqian and the others tugged on the silver threads. Seeing that it was as thin as hair, they had some doubts in their hearts. But they used a little more strength to ascertain that it was able to withstand their weight. One by one, they swiftly passed through the fire. There were a few mercenaries who were too anxious and almost fell into the fire. When the last surviving mercenary landed steadily in the middle of the bonfire, Roland's eyes lit up. You could have used these silver threads to pull my brother over, but you had to wait until he was injured and on the verge of death before bringing him over. You're trying to kill my brother. Nangong Lin cried and hugged Nangong Firen's waist tightly. Her tearful eyes stared at the corroded wound on his arm with fear, and her tears fell even harder. Yiqing Luo didn't have such a good temper. At this juncture, she still allowed her to throw a little tantrum. Yiqing Luo directly clasped Nangong Lin's shoulder and easily pulled her up, throwing her towards Yi Fengru's direction. If I had pulled your brother over earlier, your brother's intention of using his own life to fight for time for you to escape would have been wasted. Yiqing Luo's tone was icy cold, as her ridiculing gaze swept past the Azura God group's mercenaries who were standing by the side with lingering fear, as her lips curled into a cold arc. Chapter 828. When the Death God group's mercenaries heard that, their faces flushed red as they lowered their eyelids in guilt. Earlier when their lives were on the line, all they were thinking about was how to survive. They had sufficient time to use the silver thread to cross that pile of raging fire because their group leader had sacrificed his own life to fight for time for them. Luckily, Yiqing Luo made a move at the last moment. Yiqing Luo didn't have the leisure to watch the Death God mercenary group put on a show of brotherly love. She directly took out a medicine bottle and threw it into Zi Qianqian's hands as she commanded in a deep voice, "The smell of blood not only stimulates the corpse puppets, it will also attract the corpse worms. Help him stop the bleeding and expel the corpse qi that has entered his body after avoiding the corpse puppets." Zi Qianqian caught the medicine bottle as her slender brows creased tightly, not liking Yiqing Luo's commanding tone. Just as she was about to retort, she saw Yiqing Luo turning her head over and the red feather fan in her hand seemed to have merged into one with the raging fire, dancing in joy on her slender jade-like fingertips. Those few silver threads which were inserted into the rock wall speedily retracted back into the feather fan. Zi Qianqian's words could only be kept in her throat. Clenching her teeth, she squatted down and started to bandage Nangong Firen's wound to stop the bleeding. Those 5 corpse puppets saw all their targets and had already crossed that ball of raging fire as they howled and charged over. Yiqing Luo used the silver threads to swiftly weave a 5 elemental enchantment on both sides of the rock wall. Following that, she took out a round oil lamp and threw it into that pile of fire as she shouted at the same time, "Run!" Although Yiqing Luo was only a copperplate mercenary group's vice group leader. But at this moment she had already become everyone's backbone. Yiqing Luo gave her command and everyone speedily turned around and ran without any hesitation. 5 corpse puppets flew forward and 5 skeletons crashed against the silver threads which had formed the enchantment, blocking them. The corpse puppets howled a few times as their ghastly white bones directly grabbed onto the silver threads. Coincidentally, the round oil lamp which Yiqing Luo threw entered the pile of fire. With a rub, the fire surged and directly burned to the highest point of the rock wall. The endless flames swallowed the 5 corpse puppets. After Yiqing Luo threw the oil lamp, she immediately turned around and displayed her smooth footwork, speedily chasing up to the others. Seeing Yiqing Luo following up, Long Yunzhan and the others who were running at the back were relieved. "Is he dead?" Qiao Jin turned his head over and asked Yiqing Luo. The other mercenaries strained their ears to listen as they ran. Yiqing Luo shook her head lightly. High-leveled corpse puppets aren't afraid of ordinary flames burning. God Thief said this before, this kind of high-leveled corpse puppets have no weaknesses at all. Then what should we do? A trace of fear appeared on Wei Bei's handsome face, and his voice trembled uncontrollably. Are we really going to die here today? As an executive group leader, every word you say is related to the mercenary's psychological state changes. Yiqing Luo didn't answer his question directly, but sneered and blamed him expressionlessly. Yiqing Luo didn't answer his question directly, but sneered and blamed him expressionlessly. Wei Bei's face darkened and he immediately shut his mouth. This woman was indeed smart and capable. But his mouth, and his arrogant attitude was really annoying. Yiqing Luo didn't care about unimportant people's thoughts. She retracted her thoughts as her gaze searched around for a way to avoid the corpse puppets. If they were chased by the corpse puppets, they would appear extremely passive. There was no preparation or chance for them to counterattack. Yiqing Luo took a deep breath as her mind kept replaying the places which they had passed by along the way. Even the details of the gravel, vines, and moss were clearly reflected in his mind. Yiqing Luo knitted her brows and looked at her coldly with a displeased expression. I really doubt the real strength of the gold medal mercenary group. Her tone was full of disdain and mockery. Ever since we entered the tomb of the Ling King, your death god mercenary group has caused trouble time and time again. You've dragged down our operation and become a burden on me. You. What did you say? Zi Qianqian was so angry that her beautiful face turned red. Her pair of cold eyes were filled with anger. Yiqing Luo gave a light humph. What I'm saying, you know it clearly in your hearts. If I had known that you were a bunch of trash, would never have signed that deal with you. These words were completely undisguised disdain for the god-slaying mercenary group. The World Mercenary Group's mercenaries were secretly delighted. They all gave their vice group leaders words 32 big thumbs up in their hearts. From the start to the end, the god-slaying mercenary group had always placed themselves in a high and mighty position. As though accompanying them into the bottom level of the Ling King's tomb was a condescending act. But in actual fact, the god-slaying mercenary group's performance was totally an existence of a burden. Not only did they not have any practical use, they even kept on creating trouble which caused people to die one after another. Chapter 830. The underlying meaning was that if Zi Qianqian still wanted to stir up any trouble, she wouldn't bother about the death god mercenary group's life or death. Zi Qianqian's back instantly felt a chill, and when he met Yiqing Luo's long and narrow eyes, he felt as though something was strangling his neck, making it hard for him to breathe. Perhaps it was Yiqing Luo's words which made Zi Qianqian sense the seriousness of the situation. Or perhaps it was Yiqing Luo's imposing manner which suppressed Zi Qianqian so much that he had no way to resist. Zi Qianqian's hand stiffly released Yiqing Luo's wrist as he took half a step back. The expression on his beautiful face was congealed and stiff. Yiqing Luo retracted her gaze as the blade speedily cut the wound on Nangong Firen's arm, which had already stopped bleeding. The medicinal powder which stopped the bleeding was swiftly dissolved and cleaned up. The wound was so deep that the bone could be seen. Yiqing Luo's expression didn't change as she directly cut the wound even bigger. Blood started to gush out immediately. The Death God mercenary group's mercenaries' hearts were filled with terror. Wandering on the blade's edge for several decades, they had experienced all sorts of dangerous missions. But they had never done such a strange mission. They could kill any demon, magical beast or mirage beast without any expression. But unfortunately, this time round, they were facing a ghost. For these mercenaries to reach their current position, whose hands weren't stained with blood. Naturally, he was extremely afraid of this kind of thing. Especially the fear which the corpse puppets and worms brought to them, had already seeped deep into their bones. Looking at Yiqing Luo's agile actions, no one went up to stop her. At this moment, Long Yunzhan's icy cold eyes swept past everyone without any warmth as he spoke calmly, "Do a head count." Qiao Jin and the others responded and started to count the number of people. After around half an incense's time, the few of them counted the number of people. The World Mercenary Group has a total of 96 people who entered King Ling's tomb. Currently there are 96 people left and 3 of them have some external injuries. Death God Mercenary Group has a total of 37 people who entered King Ling's tomb. Currently there are 13 people left and 5 injured. When the head count was done, the Death God Mercenary Group's mercenaries' faces flushed red. Even Zi Qianqian, who had his eyes on top of his head, had unnaturally shifted his vision away, embarrassed to look at the World Mercenary Group. From the data, it could be seen who was the real lousy teammate. Long Yunzhan did not use these numbers to speak. He continued coldly, "Take advantage of this opportunity to properly nurse your body and strength. Right now, I can't be sure how long this stone wall can stop those corpse puppets. If a battle really breaks out later, you can only rely on yourself." It was rare for Long Yunzhan to speak for such a long time, so the World Group's mercenaries immediately responded in unison. On the Azura Group side, they looked at each other. Finally, under Yi Fingru's signal, they all sat cross-legged on the ground, closed their eyes, and stabilized the chaotic internal force in their bodies. The World Group on the other hand took out the prepared rations and water bags from their space pockets, passing them down one by one as they ate the rations in big mouthfuls. The Killing God Group and a dozen other mercenaries smelled the fragrance and immediately opened their eyes. Even in this kind of atmosphere, the ordinary dry rations that they usually disdained to eat seemed especially fragrant at this moment. 10 over mercenary stomachs couldn't help but let out a growl in response. They had been guarding the World Group outside the tomb since early in the morning and later on in King Ling's tomb, walking for over 2 hours, and having experienced so many hair-raising matters, all their energy had been depleted. Chapter 831. Yi Fengru, who had received the space bag, had a glint in his gloomy eyes. His fingers tightened slightly as he stiffly passed it to the mercenaries beside him. The Death God Group's mercenaries were all stuffing their stomachs without saying a word as their gazes were fixed on Yiqing Luo, who was still helping Nangong Firen to expel the corpse qi. She was obviously a 15-year-old young lady, looking so immature, and her profound qi was so weak, but she was able to take up such a heavy burden. Everything in the tomb was all because of this young lady. They were lucky enough to survive. They had no choice but to admit that after experiencing these 2 hours of matters, they were only left with a bellyful of admiration towards this 15-year-old young lady. Yiqing Luo followed Old Man Tsang's instructions as she swiftly operated the actions in her hands. It was all thanks to the numerous precious medicinal herbs which Dmo Xian had prepared in the profound phoenix ring. Combined with the medicinal herbs and profound qi, under the dual pressure, that lump of blood which was emitting green fog was finally expelled after 1 hour. Yiqing Luo used the oiled paper to wrap that pool of blood and wiped it clean without leaving a single trace. Following that, she stood up straight as she casually threw the oiled paper to Zi Qianqian. "If you don't want to attract the worms, then take good care of this bag of tainted blood." Saying that, she turned around and walked towards Long Yunjan's direction. She received the dry rations and water bag from Long Yunjan and started to gobble it down in big mouthfuls. What should we do now? Long Yunjan appeared slightly worried as his brows creased slightly as he glanced at the direction of the Death God group. More than 20 mercenaries from the Killing God group had died. If it wasn't for the fact that they had great teamwork and were able to listen to Yi Qing Luo's instructions at the fastest speed. Probably after the Death God group's mercenaries were all dead, the world group would not be spared. If they really followed the plan which they had before coming. Which was Long Yunjan and the rest escorting their brothers out of the Ling King's tomb while Yi Qing Luo followed the Death God mercenaries to find a chance to complete the mission. Long Yunjan would not agree to it no matter what. After all, not only did the Death God mercenaries have an ulterior motive towards Yi Qing Luo, Long Yunjan also doubted the Death God mercenaries' ability. If Yi Qing Luo and the Death God mercenaries were to stay, these people would probably become Yi Qing Luo's burden. Yi Qing Luo wiped the water from the corner of her mouth and placed the water bag back into her space pocket. She squinted her eyes and looked at the strange totem on the rock wall which looked like it had been splashed with blood. Her slender brows frowned slightly. I'm afraid it's impossible to return the way we came. Yi Qing Luo clenched her fists and immediately shut her eyes. We fell directly from the outer perimeter, and even if we were to return using the original route, we would at most reach the place where we fell. Isn't there another road over there? Let's go that way and we'll be able to find the entrance to the periphery. Zi Qianqian anxiously spoke. After staying in such a gloomy place for so long, she could no longer endure it. Yi Qing Luo didn't open her eyes as her lips curled into a ridiculing arc. Then go ahead and try. In this tomb of the Ling King, there were not only 2 mercenary groups. There was also a group of powerful existences hidden in the dark. The commotion caused by that wave of power was enough to cause the periphery of the tomb to collapse. It could be seen that the people from that wave of power should have directly entered from the middle level and reached the bottom level. Only thing was not sure what method that wave of power used to be able to bypass the 5 corpses and the Guardian King corpses to directly enter the main tomb of the Ling King, causing a commotion. Along the way, they didn't meet with any mechanisms or arrays. If Yi Qing Luo didn't guess wrongly, it should have been cleared by that wave of power. So if they were to return using the original route, that route would definitely be filled with mechanisms and arrays. Chapter 832. Especially until now, that hidden force had yet to reveal itself. Yi Qing Luo didn't believe that they had created such a huge commotion and that force had yet to discover it. Before she could guess the motive of that hidden force, Yi Qing Luo didn't intend to act rashly. If Zi Qianqian wanted to court death, she wouldn't stop him. But those with brains would know that if they chose to try their luck to find the middle-level exit alone, it was simply courting death. As expected, Zi Qianqian shut his mouth. Yi Qing Luo closed her eyes, as though she was taking a nap to recover her energy. In actual fact, she was asking Old Man Tsang in her mind if there was any way to restrain the corpse puppets. God Thief couldn't explain, but it didn't mean that Old Man Tsang, who had lived for thousands of years, didn't know. 1 hour and there's no sound of the corpse puppets chasing after us. Apparently these corpse puppets are afraid of fire. Yi Qing Luo pondered and said, but ordinary fire, I'm afraid there's no way to burn these 5 high-leveled corpse puppets. Sigh. If I had let you pass the 2nd level of the Purgatory Tower earlier, you wouldn't be in such a predicament now. Old Man Tsang sighed helplessly. The 2nd level's reward can restrain the high-leveled corpse puppets? Yi Qing Luo frowned as her eyes shone brightly. But in a blink of an eye, it dimmed down. Challenging the 1st level of the Purgatory Tower would take at least 1 day's time. Those 5 corpse puppets probably wouldn't give her the time to challenge them. And being in the Ling King's tomb, she wasn't at ease to directly extract her soul consciousness to challenge the Purgatory Tower. If any accident happened and her physical body was damaged, her soul consciousness and soul would be damaged. She couldn't take this risk. Whether you can restrain them or not, it's useless to say more now. Old Man Song realized that he had revealed the second level of Purgatory's reward and immediately changed the topic. 5 high-leveled corpse puppet strength is equivalent to 5 sky mystic overlords. Just based on your strength, to defeat the 5 corpses is as difficult as ascending to heaven. Don't keep saying it's difficult. Give me some useful advice. Yi Ching Luo wanted to roll her eyes. At this moment, couldn't Old Man Song be straight to the point? Old Man Song remained silent for a moment before he slowly said, "Actually, there's another way, but your profound jade heart might not be able to support it." Right now, the profound jade heart in Yi Ching Luo's heart had already shown some abnormalities. If he forcefully used the power of the profound jade heart in order to defeat the 5 corpses. Your target isn't the 5 corpses, but the Guardian Corpse King. Once the 5 corpses die, the Guardian Corpse King will awaken. At that time, without the profound heart jade, you, who are extremely weak, might not even be able to resist a normal corpse puppet. Old Man Song's voice was exceptionally heavy. Yi Ching Luo's brows twitched a few times. Say it. The atmosphere was heavy. Another hour passed. Yi Ching Luo's eyes were still shut, without any reaction. If it wasn't for the occasional movement of her eyelashes, everyone would have suspected that she was asleep. There were already people on the Azura group's side who felt increasingly terrified and strange under this kind of tranquil atmosphere, and only wanted to quickly leave this place. But unfortunately, Yi Ching Luo had no intention to take action. At this moment, a loud and clear howl of a corpse broke the silence. Everyone's expression changed drastically. Their gazes were all focused on the stone wall. Before the crowd could recover from their shock, the tomb began to tremble violently once more. It was accompanied by sharp howls from the corpse hag. It was the turbulence caused by the corpse hag crashing against the stone wall. Everyone's faces were steely green, as one by one, they shrunk towards Yi Ching Luo's direction. Yi Ching Luo slowly opened her eyes, as she squinted her eyes and gazed at the stone wall. Chapter 833. Indeed, her guess was right. That blazing fire obstructed the 5 corpse puppets for close to 2 hours. The corpse puppets were refined from dried corpses 1,000 years ago. Other than the black robe, there was only a set of skeleton left. Naturally, they were afraid of being burned by the fire. If it had been an ordinary corpse puppet, that wave of raging fire would have burned it to ashes. Looked like the method that Old Man Song mentioned earlier. She might, pong, pong pong pong. The sound of the corpse puppets hitting the stone wall became increasingly violent. Every time it shook, it seemed to affect one's heart as it kept twitching. Nangong Lin was so scared that she broke out in cold sweat as her face was filled with tears. Run. Let's run. Who knows when those corpse puppets will break this stone wall open. Nangong Firen leaned against the stone wall as the back of his head touched those slippery vines, which made him feel extremely uncomfortable. Hearing Nangong Lin's whimpering, he frowned slightly as he glanced sideways at his arm which had been bandaged and his target fell onto Yi Ching Luo. After the corpse chi was expelled from his body finally regained its temperature and his body temperature gradually returned to normal. Moving his arm, there was no pain coming from the wound. Nangong Firen closed his eyes as the image of Yi Ching Luo's stunning face appeared in his mind. She pursed her lips tightly as she treated his wound indifferently. He should say that Yi Ching Luo was quick-witted enough to know that under such circumstances, one more person's strength meant one more chance of survival, so she specially used a medicinal powder to numb the pain on his wound. Or should he say that Yi Ching Luo was heartless to those who weren't her companions? Once this medicinal powder was used, after the medicinal effect had worn off, he would suffer hundreds of times more pain than now. Seventh sister, even if this stone wall can stop the corpse puppets, but this tomb. We'll collapse any time. We'd better think of a way to leave this place first. Yifeng Ru's voice revealed his gentleness at this moment. He lowered his eyelids as he gently patted the sobbing Nangong Lin who was in his arms. Everyone's gaze immediately focused on Yiqing Luo. To leave or not to leave, everything depended on Yiqing Luo's decision. Yiqing Luo's expression was calm as her lips curled into a faint cold arc. Can we leave? It's still better than sitting here and waiting for death. Yifengru's gentle eyebrows knitted together, and his eyes flashed with a trace of gloominess. Don't want to sit still and wait for death. Yiqing Luo's gaze moved as she looked at Yifengru. Yifengru twisted his eyebrows. That gaze made him feel a chill run down his spine. But the arrow had already been knocked, and he could only clench his teeth and nod. The Death God Squad cannot lose any more brothers. All right. Yiqing Luo slowly stood up and walked to the front of the stone wall, her gaze calm and indifferent. Then, for the sake of your Azura group's brothers, I need your help. Yifengru was startled. The surrounding mercenaries all looked at him with hopeful eyes. Even if he didn't want to, he had to agree. All right. As long as you can guarantee that everyone will survive. Yiqing Luo didn't bother about Yifengru's words and directly turned around to look at the mercenaries from both sides and began to instruct them on what to do next. The tomb continued to shake. Gravel fell, and cracks gradually appeared on the ground. The corpse puppet was still hitting the stone wall. On this side, under Yiqing Luo's arrangement, the mercenaries stood in their positions. Just as the last mercenary was about to complete his task, the stone wall suddenly exploded with a loud bang. Countless gravel flew straight towards the mercenaries' faces. The 10 over Azura group's members who stood in the front row immediately shut their eyes and moved their heads to one side. Yiqing Luo had instructed them to stand firmly on the spot no matter what. They cursed silently in their hearts if Yiqing Luo had intentionally arranged for them to stand firmly at the front. Chapter 834. The whistling wind kept ringing beside their ears as it swept up the incoming gravel. Bam! The gravel was blown off its trajectory as it crashed onto the rock wall. First row attack. Yiqing Luo's calm commanding voice was heard beside their ears. The mercenaries instinctively obeyed the command as they raised the weapons in their hands and attacked towards the 5 corpse puppets in front of them. After the rock wall was smashed open, those 5 corpse puppets instantly rushed up. The 5 corpses were burned by the intense fire, and even though they had swallowed the air freshener pill, that burnt stench was faintly discernible in their noses. Perhaps it was because they had been burnt earlier, which infuriated the 5 corpses. The 5 corpses' howls were mournful and strange, making one's heart tremble. The first row of mercenaries were all members of the Azura group. Recalling Yiqing Luo's serious instructions, even though they were terrified, they still went up to attack and started the mission which Yiqing Luo had given them. The few of them worked together, but there was no way to win the advanced corpse puppets. After they wrapped the things which Yiqing Luo had passed to them onto the 5 corpses, they swiftly retreated. The second row of mercenaries immediately went up to them. The corpse puppets had strong explosive power, but they were after all refined by arrays. Other than exterminating all the living creatures in the tomb and merging them into one with themselves, they didn't know how to think about other things. Because of this, these mercenaries listened to Yiqing Luo's instructions and wouldn't go head-on against the corpse puppets. Only when the front row attracted the attention of the corpse puppets, the back row swiftly wrapped the things onto the 5 corpses. Following that was the 3rd row. 4th row. By the time all the mercenaries had completed their mission and retreated to one side, they saw a black shadow leaping over the top of the tomb. It was Yiqing Luo. She stood in the middle of the 5 corpses as her eyes were filled with a chilly glint. The black outfit wrapped around the lady's slender petite figure and the cherry blossom on her arm was extremely eye-catching. Her slender fingers held a red feather fan, and while she didn't dare to move her fingertips, a gush of powerful aura exploded from her. Huff, 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 a strong gust of wind swept everything in the tomb. It was clearly only the energy of a low-level profound practitioner, yet the imposing aura it emanated and the profound energy that swept out from the feather fan was so sharp, unstoppable, and intimidating. Yi-Ching Luo's footwork changed rapidly, not daring to make any mistakes. The feather fan in his hand was constantly fluctuating with profound qi. She guided the 5 corpse puppets to move in her designated position. Those 5 corpse puppets, after chasing Yi-Ching Luo for several rounds, started to howl in anger to demonstrate their might. The eerie white bone skeleton fingers turned into sharp weapons, as it directly struck towards Yi-Ching Luo from all directions. Vice Commander, Ching Luo. Everyone was on tenterhooks as they broke out in cold sweat while looking at Yi-Ching Luo, even holding their breaths. There was no way to hide. Yi-Ching Luo half squinted her eyes as her feather fan flipped over her fingertips and like a ball of moving raging fire, it floated into the air. The corners of her mouth curled into a cold smile, and a vortex of raging flames shot down from the feather fan. It looked like a fire dragon with its mouth wide open. At the same time, Yi-Ching Luo's delicate body swayed, the footwork under her feet became increasingly fast and strange, making people only able to see an afterimage. Only to see Yi-Ching Luo stepping on the corpse puppet, leaping up. With a somersault, she was already standing on top of the open feather fan. It was as if she was suspended in mid-air on top of the flame, blooming a gorgeous flower. That fire dragon opened its mouth and swiftly swallowed the corpse puppet completely. Yi-Ching Luo landed lightly on the ground, stretched out her 5 fingers and the feather fan returned to her palm. Chapter 835. That's right, stare. Those 5 corpse puppets which were shrouded in black robes all raised their heads at this moment. Under the black robes, there were pairs of faint green glows. They couldn't see their eyes or eyeballs. Only 2 balls of faint green light were embedded on those eerie white bones. It was extremely terrifying. Yi-Ching Luo retreated to the mercenary group's side as she turned her head towards Yi Feng-ru. Second brother, release your heart flame. Standing by the side, Yi Feng-ru, who didn't understand what Yi-Ching Luo needed his help, was stunned. Heart flame. Yi-Ching Luo nodded calmly. Release your heart flame, the purer the better, the more vigorous the better. Yi Feng-ru's brows creased tightly, not understanding the meaning of Yi-Ching Luo's words. Before he could ask, those 5 corpse puppets which had dispersed the fire dragon, leapt towards their direction furiously. 12 balls of faint green light whizzed towards their faces, bringing along a gust of chilly air. Yi Feng-ru was so shocked that he retreated several steps as his heart pounded and his legs turned soft as his body kept shivering. Heart flame. By his ear was Yi-Ching Luo's anxious roar. Yi Feng-ru didn't dare to ask what was the purpose of releasing her heart flame, as he subconsciously used his profound jade heart's energy to condense a ball of heart flame as he shot it towards the corpse puppets. At the same time, Yi-Ching Luo's heart flame was also released. Those 5 corpse puppets which pounced over were still on the original spot as they continued to struggle but were not able to move an inch. As though they were imprisoned on the original spot, unable to move. It's silver threads. It's the World Group's Vice Group leader's silver threads. Some mercenaries pointed out the reason why the corpse puppets were unable to move. The crowd followed the glow from the luminous pearl and looked over. They saw those 5 corpse puppets' black robes were all stuck with silver threads which glowed with a cold glint. The silver threads intertwined and penetrated through the surrounding rock walls, forming a silver thread cage which bound the corpse puppets tightly, totally unable to move. Following the direction of the silver threads, the last place which the silver threads bound was that feather fan in Yi-Ching Luo's hands. The mercenaries suddenly realized the reason why Yi-Ching Luo gave each row of mercenaries a piece of silver wire to wrap around the corpse puppet's body and immediately changed to the next row. And earlier, Yiqing Luo used her strange footwork to constantly change her direction, leading the corpse puppet to scurry around, in order to fix the silver threads on the corpse puppet onto the two sides of the rock walls, and to form an invisible cage. The Killing God group's mercenaries' hearts were filled with shock, which made their admiration towards Yiqing Luo unable to be expressed in words. A 15-year-old girl actually possessed such a sharp mind and strength. At this moment, these mercenaries didn't bother to ask what Yiqing Luo needed Yifeng Ru's heart flame for. Even Zi Qianqian remained silent and did not speak. The power of the heart flame was only a flame spark used by alchemists to refine medicinal pills. It could only be used to refine medicinal pills. It was useless for other things. Yiqing Luo wanted to use her heart flame to burn the corpse puppet? This thought was soon confirmed. After Yiqing Luo and Yifeng Ru released the power of their heart flame, Yiqing Luo's entire body seemed as though it was enveloped by a ball of blazing fire. But in an instant, that powerful energy had completely fused the two's heart flame's energy, directly crashing onto the corpse puppet which was bound. Everyone's vision fell onto the corpse puppet's side. After the heart flame fell onto the corpse puppet's body, it instantly engulfed the 5 corpse puppets. In the air, there was an extremely unpleasant burnt smell. No one discovered that the powerful energy earlier was shot out from Yiqing Luo's wrist. If this goes on, before the corpse puppet is completely incinerated, my profound jade heart's energy will be depleted and I won't be able to release the power of my heart flame. The current situation didn't allow Yiqing Luo to decide whether she was willing or not. At the very least, right now, she could still guarantee the survival of her group of brothers by forcefully consuming the power of the profound jade heart. Otherwise, when the power of the heart fire could no longer be released, all of them would be fused by the enraged corpse puppet. Yifeng Ru's forehead was already dripping with cold sweat. Hearing Yiqing Luo's words, he almost couldn't catch his breath. If this goes on, our profound jade heart will exhaust its energy. After the power of the profound jade heart was exhausted, it would take at least 3 to 5 days to recover. Yiqing Luo dared to use such a risky method. Didn't you say that for the sake of our brother's survival, you would do anything? Yiqing Luo scoffed lightly as her lips curled into a smirk of ridicule. Why, you can't even do such a small thing. At this moment, if one were to take a closer look, one would be able to tell that Yiqing Luo's eyes were hiding a smear of strenuous effort and stubbornness. Only, when Yifeng Ru heard Yiqing Luo's ridicule, his attention had already been diverted. He secretly clenched his teeth, and could only release the power of the heart flame even more ferociously. Chapter 837. In her chest, there seemed to be a raging fire, incessantly burning. Wave after wave of scorching sensation whizzed towards her heart. Yiqing Luo's breathing became heavy. She clenched her teeth, forcing herself to take a deep breath, trying hard to maintain the momentum of the heart fire. Lass, you can't continue to be brave. Let the divine doctor from the Bei Ming family come over and take over. This profound jade heart of yours can no longer be used up. Old man Tsang's tone was solemn as he berated her. Yiqing Luo herself also felt it. The place where the profound jade heart was hidden was completely scorching hot, as though it was about to expand and explode. That profound jade heart was also trembling non-stop, constantly sending out warnings. It wasn't that she wasn't willing to stop. But now was a critical juncture. If she stopped, she would definitely not have the energy to support another breath, to release the heart fire. Yiqing Luo took a deep breath, sweat drenched her black hair, sweat dripping down from her forehead, wet her eyelashes. In the haze, she saw the corpse puppet that was restrained by the silver silk cage, had already lost the strength to struggle. That wide black robe, gradually turned into ashes. That ghastly white skeleton, gradually turned into ashes. She fiercely took a deep breath, once again activated the profound jade heart's energy, increasing the intensity of the fire. Lulu. She called out. Bei Ming Lulu was already prepared, immediately releasing the power of the heart fire, making the last wave of heart fire attack. After Bei Ming Lulu's heart fire merged with the other two balls of heart fire, with a whoosh, the intensity of the fire once again rushed to the top of the rock wall. SSSS, hua, a crisp shattering sound, came from Yi Qing Luo's body. When the 5 corpse puppets were burnt to ashes, Yi Qing Luo's body fell softly to the ground at the same time. The profound jade heart couldn't hold on, directly shattered in her heart. Yi Qing Luo could even clearly feel that the 2 halves of the profound jade heart gradually disappeared, without a trace of breath. Pain immediately attacked her entire body. Yi Qing Luo coughed lightly, her petite body lying on the ground, trembling slightly. Yi Fengru also went limp by the side, panting heavily, wiping off the sweat on his head. Finally, dealt with the 5 corpse puppets. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to hold on any longer. Yi Fengru was sweating profusely, panting heavily as he turned his head to look at the girl beside him. Yi Qing Luo's condition seemed to be much more serious than his. His face was deathly pale and his forehead was covered in cold sweat. She trembled and lay on the ground powerlessly. Even her breathing was so light that it seemed like it would stop in the next second. Yi Fengru's handsome face revealed a faintly discernible expression. His eyes slowly narrowed, and a sharp glint flashed in his eyes for a moment before disappearing. Ah! Ah, Jean! Yi Qing Luo's voice was extremely weak as she slowly raised her hand, wanting to ask Long Yun Zhan to carry her away. She knew that after losing the profound heart jade, she would become an ordinary person. However, he didn't expect that he would be so weak. She couldn't even move her body. Now, even a Tom, Dick, or Harry could easily take her life. Yi Qing Luo gave a bitter smile as her lips twitched. Long Yun Zhan's heart had been hanging by a thread, as he kept an eye on Yi Qing Luo's condition. The minute he heard Yi Qing Luo calling his name, he immediately walked over. Only. The next second, Long Yun Zhan's expressionless face turned steely green and black. Yi Fengru. Long Yun Zhan's icy cold voice sharply called out Yi Fengru's name. Yi Qing Luo was in a daze, almost fainting. Suddenly her body felt heavy and she hazily opened her eyes, meeting Yi Fengru's gloomy eyes. Chapter 838. Yi Qing Luo's slender brows creased slightly as her charming eyes flashed with a biting cold glint. What do you want to do? The corner of Yi Fengru's mouth curled up, his gloomy eyes filled with madness. The Death God mercenary group's purpose for appearing here, aren't you very clear? For the Phoenix Ring. Yi Qing Luo's complexion instantly turned paler. Yi Fengru wanted to take advantage of her weakness to steal the profound Phoenix Ring. He didn't want to think too much about it. Yi Fengru had already used his actions to confirm his thoughts. Yi Fengru grabbed Yi Qing Luo's arm tightly, his fingers nimbly pinched the profound Phoenix Ring on her index finger and tugged hard. Despicable. Yi Qing Luo gritted her teeth and spat out 2 words. She didn't have the slightest bit of strength to struggle. The sharp pain in her heart made her lose the strength to struggle. This was the profound Phoenix Ring that Dmo Xian had given her. No one could take away the profound Phoenix Ring. Yi Qing Luo bit her lower lip tightly, trying to use the pain to raise her spirits. Long Yun Zhan wanted to step forward but Yi Fengru used Yi Qing Luo's life as a threat. The mercenaries of the World Mercenary Group didn't dare to act rashly. The current Yi Qing Luo, anyone could tell that she was so weak that she had no ability to retaliate. Their hearts were burning with anxiety, and their eyes were filled with hatred and resentment as they looked at Yi Fengru. This was the kind of person who burned the bridge after crossing the river. Yi Fengru kept twisting the profound Phoenix Ring. Yi Qing Luo's fair fingers were already covered with circles of red marks from his rough actions. But the profound phoenix ring was still firmly on Yiqing Luo's index finger and there was no way to remove it. Seventh sister, I advise you to be tactful and hand over the profound phoenix ring. Otherwise, don't blame me for being heartless. Yi Fengru's eyes were filled with madness. This kind of expression, this kind of words filled with threat. However, his tone was still as gentle as ever. It made one's hair stand on end. The phoenix ring was a divine artifact. After a divine artifact recognized a master, no one other than the master could use it. Just like the profound phoenix ring, other than Yiqing Luo and Dmo Xian, no one else could take the ring off from her hands. Yiqing Luo no longer had the energy to speak as her misty eyes couldn't conceal the sharpness in her eyes. Yi Fengru snorted, and a dagger appeared in his hand. Yi Fengru. If you dare to touch a single strand of Qing Luo's hair, I will immediately exterminate your Azura group. Long Yunzhan's deep and cold voice was hurriedly heard. The corners of Yi Fengru's mouth curled up in a crazed smile as he stared at the profound phoenix ring. As long as I can get the profound phoenix ring, so what if I kill everyone? As long as you still care about this beautiful and moving seventh sister, you won't dare to make a move against me. Yi Fengru had grasped the world group's sentiments and loyalty very clearly. As long as they held on to Yiqing Luo, those youngsters wouldn't dare to act rashly. There's still poison on your body and without Qing Luo's antidote, you will act up again in 2 hours' time. Qiao Jin shouted angrily, silently cursing Yi Fengru for being despicable and shameless. Yi Fengru's mouth twitched in disapproval. Seventh sister's heart isn't hard enough after all. That pill just now was the antidote, he chuckled softly. The dagger was already close to Yiqing Luo's index finger. Seventh sister, second brother will give you one last chance. If you insist on not handing over the profound phoenix ring, second brother will not go easy on you. If she couldn't take off the profound phoenix ring, then she would directly chop off Yiqing Luo's finger. She could still take the profound phoenix ring away. An icy cold touch was felt from her index finger. Yiqing Luo squinted her eyes as her lips moved coldly, spitting out 2 words at him. Pooey. A mouthful of saliva was directly spat on Yi Fengru's face. Chapter 839. Fengru. Stop it. Nangong Firen held onto her arm weakly as she struggled to stand up. However, Yi Fengru seemed as though he couldn't hear anything from the outside world as his gaze turned sharp and his actions didn't hesitate at all. Roar, roar, roar. At the critical moment, a sharp and piercing beast howl broke the silence of the tomb. They saw a black shadow leaping past everyone's eyes. Under the illumination of the luminous pearl, everyone could only see that sharp fangs, glistening with flowing light. Red blood slowly dripped down along the teeth. Sliding down the throat, it was extremely enchanting. Ah! A miserable shriek was heard from Yi Fengru's mouth. In everyone's line of sight, a huge leopard with shiny black fur and a body as black as ink appeared. It opened its mouth and its sharp fangs viciously bit onto Yi Fengru's wrist. That pair of brown beast eyes were opened wide like bronze bells as it was filled with the leopard's fury. It was Shi Ju. The world group's mercenaries heaved a sigh of relief as their suspended hearts slowly sunk. Yiqing Luo's lips twitched helplessly. Her Shi Ju had rushed over to save her. The minute they entered the tomb, she released Shi Ju and went around to check on the surrounding situation. But before Shi Ju returned, the tomb collapsed and they fell into the middle layer of the tomb. She had not expected Shi Ju to follow her scent and find its way over. Wait a minute. Found its way over. From the periphery of the tomb, it directly came to the bottom layer. Which meant that Shi Ju had found the exit to leave the tomb. Yiqing Luo's eyes lit up slightly. Let go. Beast! Yi Fengru's miserable shriek was still ringing beside her ears. His wrist, along with that dagger, was bitten by Shi Ju. The dagger broke into pieces as it fell onto the ground. Unfortunately, Yi Fengru's wrist was bleeding continuously as the intense pain stimulated his consciousness. Sometimes it clenched its teeth tightly, cutting his skin and stirring his meridians. Sometimes it loosened its teeth and used that smelly tongue to lick the blood that seeped out. Heaven, the world group, let's discuss this. If this goes on, Yi Fengru's hand will be crippled. Nangong Firen's voice trembled as she used a negotiating tone. Let Yi Fengru go and our Azura group will give you an explanation. Bah! Qiao Jin spat fiercely. Earlier when that scoundrel Yi Fengru wanted to chop off Qin Luo's finger, why didn't he think that Qin Luo's hand would be crippled? Even if Shi Ju didn't bite off Yi Fengru's hand, the coin dart in my hand wouldn't let him go. These words were echoed by the world group's youngsters. Just based on what Yi Fengru had done to Yi Qin Luo earlier, even if he were to die 100 times, it would not be enough to vent his anger. Shi Ju. Kill him. That's right. Eat him alive and swallow him into your stomach. The mercenaries of the world group roared with righteous indignation. Shi Ju's copper bell-sized eyes blinked as it looked at Yi Qin Luo, as though it was asking, "Can I really eat him up?" His brown eyes were filled with innocence. His mouth was biting on his bloody wrist. No matter how one looked at it, it was strange. Yi Qin Luo wanted to laugh, but she didn't have the energy to do so. She just moved her eyes lightly, indicating for it to let go of Yi Fengru. Shi Ju obediently bit Yi Fengru's arm and threw it towards Nangong Firen's direction. Following that, it lowered its head and picked up Yi Qin Luo's petite body as it leapt back to Long Yunzhan's side. Long Yunzhan swiftly caught Yi Qin Luo. Bei Ming Lu squeezed forward and helped to take Yi Qin Luo's pulse. Chapter 840. The minute she said that, Bai Ming Lu stopped. The Death God mercenary group had been eyeing Yi Qin Luo covetously by the side. She couldn't say anything about Yi Qin Luo's current situation. Returning to her brother's side, Yi Qin Luo had already relaxed as she shut her eyes weakly and leaned into Long Yunzhan's arms. Qin Luo, why are you still talking about sibling ties at this moment? Just let Shi Ju bite his hand off. Qiao Jin's eyes were filled with anger as he stared at Yi Fengru, who was being supported by Wei Beilai. Yi Qin Luo's eyelashes fluttered as her breathing slowly lengthened. Her slender long fingers lightly scraped the back of Long Yunzhan's hand. Long Yunzhan instantly understood what Yi Qin Luo was thinking. His face turned black as his gaze turned chilly as though it was covered with frost. His voice was chilly as though it was wrapped in ice. Death God mercenary group, if you don't want to die, stop the bleeding immediately. Nangong Firen was stunned when he heard that as his pupils grew wide as he turned his head and shouted anxiously, quickly stop the bleeding for Yi Fengru. Be careful of the corpse worms. Everyone was instantly enlightened. Why did Shi Ju only bite Yi Fengru's wrist and didn't bite it off or directly tear Yi Fengru into pieces? It was because of this reason. In King Ling's tomb, blood must not be seen. If Yi Fengru's wrist was bitten off, it would definitely spill a lot of blood. If it attracted the corpse worms, under the situation where there was no flame, they would be swallowed by the worms directly, leaving nothing behind. So Shi Ju only cut the skin on Yi Fengru's wrist and kept on licking his blood. Qiao Jin clenched his fists as he clenched the gold coin darts tightly. After we get out, kill Yi Fengru however you want. For now, let's spare his dog life. Long Yunzhan's expression was still indifferent, but his eyes were overflowing with a thick chilly intent, mixed with a murderous aura which was waiting to be unleashed. This is the consequence of messing around. Even if you die here, you deserve it. His cold voice was filled with anger. His pair of clear blue eyes that were as clear as lake water stared coldly at the person in his arms. He was really angry. If he wasn't angry, the usually cold Long Yunjian would absolutely not say such sarcastic words. Yiqing Luo knew that she was in the wrong and simply didn't have any energy to respond. How is she? Long Yunjian's cold eyes suddenly looked at Beiming Lulu. Beiming Lulu shuddered as she coughed lightly and replied via the mercenary group badge, Qing Luo she, her profound heart jade, seems to be gone. Yiqing Luo's pulse was in a mess, to such an extent that she couldn't detect the slightest fluctuation of profound qi. This could only prove that Yiqing Luo had forcefully exhausted the power of her profound heart jade, causing it to overload and directly shatter within her body. This kind of thing was not unheard of. The profound heart jade was gone. Which meant that the current Yiqing Luo was an ordinary person who didn't even have the ability to move. In this kind of strange and gloomy tomb, an ordinary person who did not even have the strength to walk was extremely dangerous. Long Yunjian's eyes grew colder. Yiqing Luo who was in his arms couldn't help but shudder. Long Yunjian's eyes were covered with a layer of extreme coldness, as if it was covered with a thin layer of frost. He slowly squatted down and placed Yiqing Luo by Shiju's side, nestling in between Shiju's soft fur. His cold voice seemed to be faintly discernible as it fell into everyone's ears. In order to save everyone, in order to let everyone survive, Qing Luo risked her own life, but what did she get in return? His pale thin lips gently pulled into a faintly discernible austere arc, raising his eyes. His azure blue eyes were fixated on Yifeng Ru. Long Yunjian slowly walked towards him. What I got in return is your Azura group burning the bridge after crossing the river, repaying kindness with ingratitude. Chapter 841. That long sword was extremely horrifying. The blade of the sword was faintly discernible with sparkling light patterns that looked like pieces of scales. The icy aura was powerful and majestic. It was as though a ball of cold current was spreading from Long Yunjian's feet. The mercenaries from the Azura group were shocked by this aura as they stared at the long sword in his hand. Their legs were already trembling uncontrollably. All of you deserve to die. Long Yunjian's cold words came out from his thin lips. His long sword danced and swept up sword waves. Profound qi and the cold current intertwined as he slashed down. The entire tomb trembled under this powerful aura. Pieces of gravel fell one after another. The continuous tremors had already overwhelmed the tomb. The sound of gravel falling to the ground and the cracking of the ground overlapped with each other. It was obvious that the tomb was about to collapse again. Leader of the world group, I'm afraid this is a misunderstanding. Let's talk. Nangong Firen felt a chill down his spine when he met that pair of azure eyes. He felt suffocated. Nangong Firen was fearful of this young man who looked no more than 20 years old but had such an imposing aura. Long Yunjian really wanted to kill them. There was no other emotion in Long Yunjian's eyes. There was only a thick killing intent. Long Yunjian ignored Nangong Firen's words. The sword qi was majestic, and the sword wave that slashed down left countless cracks on the rock wall. Nangong Firen held Nangong Lin in one hand and Yifeng Ru in the other as they fled pathetically to avoid Long Yunjian's attack. More than 10 mercenaries from the Azura group turned pale as they were overwhelmed with shock. This powerful aura was definitely not something that an ordinary mystic realm cultivator could release. Long Yunjian's profound rank was at least above Earth profound rank 6. Or even higher. Otherwise, a group of Earth profound realm cultivators like them wouldn't be intimidated to this extent. Fengru. Why are you so determined to snatch the profound phoenix ring? Zi Qianqian was also frightened by this frigid aura that felt like she was in an ice house. Her beautiful face was filled with displeasure. From the beginning, Yifeng Ru was the one who wanted to snatch the profound phoenix ring. Leading the Azura God Group's 30 over elite mercenaries, under the pretense of accepting the outer mission of the Ling King's tomb, in actual fact snatching the profound phoenix ring from Yiqing Luo's hands. even though the ring belonged to the overlord. But after all, this divine relic had already signed a blood contract with Yiqing Luo. Other than Yiqing Luo, no one else could remove the profound phoenix ring. Moreover, in this kind of dangerous situation, they needed to rely on Yiqing Luo to have a chance to leave the Ling King's tomb. Why? At this moment, Yi Fengru had to make a move. Wasn't this forcefully breaking the hearts of the two mercenary groups that had finally prepared to cooperate with each other? It wasn't just Si Qianqian who didn't understand what Yi Fengru was thinking. Even Nangong Firen, who had been Yi Fengru's classmate for several years, couldn't figure out what Yi Fengru was thinking. I was the one who stole the ring, and I was the one who threatened Seventh Sister. If you want to kill me, come at me alone. Yi Fengru panted heavily. His gloomy eyes stared unblinkingly at Long Yunzhan, who was filled with killing intent. He patted Nangong Firen's shoulder, indicating for him to be released. Fengru. Nangong Firen's brows creased slightly as he shouted out Yi Fengru's words. Following that, he deliberated over his words. There are many worms in the Ling King's tomb. If we were to fight here, it would only cause both of us to suffer. In the end, we will be devoured by the worms. Let's talk about everything after we leave the Ling King's tomb. Long Yunzhan's long sword, which was covered with scales, kept buzzing as it vibrated gently in his palm. His azure blue eyes were filled with rays of blue light, which contrasted with the blue flowing light of the long sword, which made the coldness and callousness in his eyes even more obvious. Azura God Group's words turned a deaf ear to them. Chapter 842. Yiqing Luo knew that Long Yunzhan was angry, and it wasn't a light one. Perhaps it was her overly weak look, which was totally different from her usual arrogant and valiant self, which agitated Long Yunzhan. His mind was filled with thoughts of killing those mercenaries from the Azura group. Even the divine dragon sword, which represented the identity of the dragon clan, was taken out. Wouldn't that expose his identity? Moreover, what Nangong Firen said was right. If they were to fight here, blood would definitely be spilled. If the worms were to be attracted and devoured everyone, wouldn't her effort of exhausting her profound jade heart's energy and causing the profound jade heart to shatter be in vain? No matter what, she must first stop Long Yunzhan from going crazy. Yiqing Luo borrowed Shiju's strength to slowly straighten her body. Her fingertips moved slightly as she tried to touch the profound phoenix ring. She should be glad that after the profound jade heart shattered, the contracted profound phoenix ring could be casually opened without the use of profound energy. Lass! Your current body can't take your torment anymore. Old Man Tsang warned her. Yiqing Luo had already taken out a pill to replenish her energy as she pinched it gently as her lips curled. She had to stop Long Yunzhan even if she couldn't take it anymore. Long Yunzhan's rage was because of her. Only she could stop Long Yunzhan. Otherwise, if this carried on, not only would there be the danger of attracting the worms over, Long Yunzhan's identity as a human dragon might also be exposed. I won't mess around, don't worry. Yiqing Luo glanced at Shiju. Shiju understood as it stretched out its huge claws to receive the pill from Yiqing Luo's hand and send it to her mouth. After taking the pill, Yiqing Luo closed her eyes. Only when the medicine took effect did she feel that her breathing was a little smoother. Her four limbs gradually regained their strength. Yiqing Luo moved her arm. Although it was still sore and there was a faint stabbing pain in her heart, but luckily it was still bearable. She stood up and gazed towards Long Yunzhan's direction. Old Man Tsang sighed lightly, knowing that he had no way to stop Yiqing Luo's decision. This lass had been putting on a brave front ever since they entered Ling Wang's tomb. And it was because of this Yiqing Luo that made him willingly stay by her side. Yiqing Luo saw Long Yunzhan raising his long sword, slashing towards those people from the Azura God group. His movements were swift and she was just about to head up to call out to Long Yunjian. Suddenly, her eyes flashed and she quickly retreated a few steps, hitting the rock wall. It was just a simple action, but it was already strenuous for her. Yiqing Luo squinted her eyes as she raised her eyes to look at the figure dressed in a bright yellow dragon robe. It floated in the air, its feet not touching the ground. Its red robe fluttered even though there was no wind. And what attracted Yiqing Luo's attention the most was its pair of scarlet-red eyes. Humans, so many delicious humans. It curled its lips slightly, raised its hand to cover its chin, and said in a greedy tone. The words that came out of his mouth were like a saw that had not been used for many years, hoarse and ear-piercing. Every word made one's hair stand on end. Yiqing Luo's vision was fixed on its hand. No, that couldn't be called as a hand. It was like the 5 corpses, a white skeleton without roots. Just a slight movement and one could hear the creaking sound of the joints twisting. Qing Luo, Vice Group Leader. The World Group's mercenaries couldn't suppress the fear in their hearts as they shouted Yiqing Luo's name with their foreheads covered in sweat. You're tuning into the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.